Welcome to the Colour Timer podcast. I am your host, Vincent Taylor. This is a podcast where we speak with professionals who work with colour. Today I'm speaking with Mr. Stuart Semple. He is an artist, an activist, a performer, and to say I'm a big fan is somewhat of an understatement. I've been following Stuart's work for many years, and I'm beyond excited to speak with him. And what are we waiting for? Let's go.
Take your seats because the hourglass is about to turn. We are entering the world of the micro podcast. Explore the craft, creativity, and science of professionals who use color to tell stories. Welcome to the Color Timer with Vincent Taylor.
Stuart, hello. Thank you for joining me.
I'm glad to be here. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad. I know it's been a long time coming. I've been trying to chat to you for ages, so it's great to finally catch you.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, awesome. I was looking through because I wrote up my questions such a long time ago, and I was looking at them before we jumped on the call. And I was obviously being really conscientious, and they're kind of involved. So if you'll please excuse me, I'm actually going to read them. I don't normally do this, but I want to read them because they're really specific questions. So yeah, but
yeah, of course.
I'm going to start the sand timer. Are you ready? Here we go.
Yeah, go.
It's kicking off. The pressure's on.
Okay,
right.
Let's see.
And away we go. All right. I'm so excited. Okay. So you work as an artist, an activist, and a performer, and you've used the internet as a performance space. And it's really difficult to know where to start with you. But I'm going to ask a hugely philosophical question, and maybe a little bit annoying. Why do we need art?
That is a deep question. I don't think we've got a long enough sand timer, but I think it does so many things, right? It does so many things, and of course we need it. I don't think there's any argument, but let's focus on a couple of things that it does that I think are really important. I think the first thing is it helps us express ourselves. So I think we all have a sense of self, and I think the expression of that sense of self is something that makes us quite unlike any other animal. And it's something that is really important. And through that expression of our sense of self, when other people see that, they start to understand themselves better and the world we're in. So I think the arts or art is actually how humanity learns from one another, from our history, from our legacy, and actually learns where we are and what we are. So I think that's the function art does that nothing else can do.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it rings true for me. I mean, and I know, for me, my experience of art is I end up learning so much more about myself as well, and what wakes me up, what kind of cuts through all the stuff. Yeah. All right, I'm going to be good. I'm going to behave. I'm going to move on to question number 2.
Okay, go on.
And I am going to talk about color, but I need to get this elephant in the room out first. And here's your quote.
Yeah.
From a little while back. So we've got a better black now. So it's time to bury the hate so we can obliterate Anish Kapoor's black once and for all. And you've created this super nano black paint. What does this mean?
In what way? What do you mean?
Well,
what does it mean?
Well, first, okay, that's not that. You're right. It's 2-part. What is this thing about Anish Kapoor? And then what have you created as a response?
Okay. So the first thing about Anish Kapoor is he's the billionaire superstar artist who acquired the rights to a new material called Vantablack, which is the blackest black in the world. So this material, if you put it on something, on a car or a building or a wristwatch or something, absorbs 99.9% of light. It is so black, you can't imagine it. It makes 3D things look 2D. So he has the rights to that. So he's the only artist in the world who can make artworks with that stuff. Wow. So that was really bad. I thought that was morally wrong in so many ways, right? So I couldn't get on board with that. I thought it was very elitist and kind of exclusionary and wrong. So what I did was I put the world's pinkest pink on the internet as a joke. And I said, by using the pinkest pink, you confirm that you're not Anish Kapoor. You're not going to give any to Anish Kapoor, and it, to the best of your knowledge, it won't make its way into the hands of Anish Kapoor.
Right.
Then what happened was that went completely viral, and people thought it was funny. I wasn't actually expecting anybody to buy it. I thought it was a piece of performance art, but they did. And then they started writing to me saying, you've got to make a black better than his, and you've got to defeat him, and all the rest of it. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I started making this black with some scientists and some geeks, and we knew how to do it, but we couldn't afford to make it. So we did a crowdfunder, and here we are 7 years later with what I call Black 4.0, which is this unbelievable super black that's pretty affordable. Anyone in the world can use it, unless they're Anish Kapoor. And I think that's kind of defeated him, and that's probably the end of the story.
Because when I'm going to use the word discovered, but when I kind of discovered you and I started reading about you, and then I started reading all this, I'm going, what the fuck? Well, I didn't. Yeah. So it's so cool to.
It's wild.
It is completely wild.
It's weird.
Yeah.
Imagine if it was your life. Yeah. It's bizarre. Like, what is going on?
All right, so you work with, and I'm sure more, but you work with acrylic, spray paint, watercolor oil, and through all of these and I use the word mesmerized, and I use the word purposefully, but I'm mesmerized by use of color and black and white. So when you're creating this work, do you see it already, or do you discover it as you go? You know, what makes you choose yellow over, say, red, or a combination of black and white next to an explosion of color?
Yeah, so particularly in colour. So for me, colour is a shortcut to emotion. And when I paint, I have music on in the studio quite loud. And I use very specific music to get me to a certain state. And it kind of dictates what colour a certain passage is painted in. And I know that sounds weird and sort of synesthetic and strange. But the colours really are kind of from a very emotional, kind of intuitive space. So even though I might know what image I'm making, I have a sort of overall tone of a work, like a vibe, a feeling that I'm trying to convey. And the colour is like essential in kind of giving it that sort of sonic quality. I don't know how to describe it.
Yeah. I think that describes it really well. And
does it? Okay.
Well, it does. But and I know you kind of put a disclaimer about it not being synesthesia, but I mean there is definitely that relationship, right? I mean, if you're being plugged in by the music.
I think so. And I think like what I try and do with my work is have an overall tone, or like a sort of tonal sense to something, that maybe when you come in contact with one of these paintings, like there's some sort of vibrational kind of resonance. And I think it's probably not too dissimilar to like what you're doing in your work. You're trying to give a scene or something a certain, you know, it's an emotional thing.
Oh, very much
that you're
so.
portraying through the colour, right? And that's what sucks you into it, and that's what kind of, I don't know, it elevates it. I mean, colour takes things to another place, you know. But for me, it's very instinctive.
Yeah.
And I don't think about it too much.
Yeah.
I might have an overall sense though, like I want this one to be kind of moody, and it's a bit of a kind of ballad, and it's kind of a bit, you know, and that might sort of dictate the palette a bit.
How do you, mate, you've probably never had this problem, but how do you shut off your logical thinking? You know, when you're just letting yourself go, and how do you turn that off so you don't start analyzing what you're doing?
Well, that's a good question. So I don't know the answer to it. I wish I did, but I know it happens, and I slip into it sometimes. And I'd love to slip into it more. And I've read all the theories, and we've all read Rick Rubin's book and all the rest of it. But that doesn't seem to work. I think I'd accidentally fall into it, and I just try and stay there for as long as I can. I wish I knew there was some sort of recipe, but I think music helps. I mean, I will say that.
Yeah.
But actually, when you know what you're doing and you're really in the flow, and you get into a rhythm, and you start forgetting time, and you just start kind of, you know, there's a space you enter, and I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I don't either. And I guess if somebody could discover it, they'd probably sell it, I guess. so this is a big, broad one as well. But where does your knowledge of color come from?
That's a really interesting question. I think my knowledge of color is from lots of different places. So I've seen a lot of art. I've read a lot of books. I've seen a lot. So there's everything that my eyes have seen that I maybe don't even remember that has had some sort of influence on me. You know, I've been socialized into color. I've seen color. I've experienced color. So I have 43 years of living in a colourful world. So I have lived experience of colour. I've read a lot of books. I've learned a lot of science over the years. I'm not a scientist, but I have learned things about colour. I've learned theories of colour. So there's an academic sort of understanding of colour that I've developed over time. And then there's a practice, which is 40 years of my life since I was a kid, using colour to draw and paint and make stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a practical application of colour. There's an experience of using it.
Off the back of that, what you said then about, you know, because you've done sort of studying and reading and again we're coming into that kind of logical part, but do you think this is such a 101 question, but do you think it is something that can be learned?
I think you can learn about colour. Someone at art school can show you a colour wheel and what a complementary colour is and what a contrasting colour is. But I think what we start to develop is a sense of intuition and taste and sort of understanding of colour. And I think that comes through practice. I mean, it's like you can read a book on swimming, but until you swim, you got to practice, right? So I think it's a bit of both. I think you can learn about it, but you need to practice colour. It's a craft.
As you were saying that, I had this image of, you know, Neo from The Matrix when he gets the thing plugged in and go, oh, I know Kung Fu. About that going, oh, I know colour. It's like this kind of instant understanding it all. It would be amazing.
Yeah, it would, but I think it takes time.
Yeah, I think so as well. And this is the whole inspiration question, which, but I find you a very inspirational artist. You're like, I just look at your work and I get really excited. And who or what inspires you?
So much. I mean, I think the main thing is society. You know, what's happening in the world. You know, what's happening to human beings. What are we actually experiencing? What's going on here? We're all living on this planet at the same time. Something's happening, you know. So I'm really fascinated in the sociology of things, like how society moves and morphs and how that's sort of portrayed through culture. So movies, music, fashion shoots, photography, poetry really inspires me massively all the time. And just seeing what people are creating, you know, people's creative work inspires me in whatever form.
Do you I feel again that this is such a cliche question, but I want to ask it anyway. How do you know when a painting's finished? You know, when you're working on that?
You don't. You never will. You know, and it's a question that's asked quite a lot.
Yeah.
And the truth is, you'll never know. You'll never know if you added a little bit more whether it would have been better, or whether if you'd have finished a little bit earlier, you'd have left it a little bit unripe. And actually with my work, I'm leaving things very sort of underdeveloped. I'm leaving them way off the boil now. And I like that sort of space and that kind of unfinishedness of things. And I'm finishing things a lot earlier than I would have done maybe 5 or 6 years ago.
That's really interesting. So you're kind of just stepping back. You're conscious of that a little bit more. That's wild.
Yeah, way more.
How you know, as an artist, you know, and it's all, well, so much of it's coming from the heart and that place of creativity. What do you think about people who are critics of art then? Do you have an opinion about that?
I think they're brilliant. They're great, brilliant. We need more of it. I think actually we're not seeing enough criticism. I think it's really useful to help us navigate, and I think that's how we grow. And I think we should be deeply critical. And I think we're at a time actually where criticism's seen as something negative. I think that's really sad. I think it's really important that we're critical about artistic output and what it means. And, you know, dare I say, is something good? And what makes it good? And does it work? And why doesn't it work? And
I remember, you know, a zillion years ago studying art history at school. And it was the first time that, you know, that we were even given that idea of going, oh, do you like this? Yeah. How come? Or you don't like it? How come? And to have to analyze that in your brain, well, yeah, why do I like it? I love that feeling, and also
it's
being
how we get to know ourselves.
Yeah, agreed. And separating it from going, well, I just like it, and that's okay, but it's fun to kind of then explore. What gets you going about it.
And there's loads of brilliant art that I don't like,
and
I totally respect, and I don't like it. I think it's bad for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But I've learned so much from it. I mean, I love bad art as much as I love good art, because it's subjective. Yeah. It doesn't matter.
That's awesome.
It's not about that.
All right, now where am I up to on my silly little list that I've got? What role does provocation or shock play for an artist? I know that there's plenty of art that will, soothe you or you lose yourself in, but there seems to be so much more that gets motivated by the need to kind of slap you across the face. I mean, do you have thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think that I do have thoughts about that. I think some art sets out to be sensational and to shock, and it does garner attention. And some issues need that, right? I mean, we need some artistic voices to cut through if they're saying something important. And actually, sometimes art should disturb us and make us ask questions, because it's freedom of speech. It's where we express big, bold ideas. And we're very lucky to live in the West where we live, where we can express these ideas, because we might be in another part of the world where we can't. But I don't think art has to do that. I think it can be beautiful, and it can be elegant, and it can be moving, and it can be romantic, and it can be all of those things, just like how a movie can be all of those things. It can be shocking and frightening and make us cry or make us full of joy, and I think art should do all of those things, And sometimes it's easier to shock, maybe, and I think that's what worries me, than it is to deal with those more nuanced things. Yeah. So, perhaps a good artist can wield all of that quite well.
Get the balancing act. As per usual, the sand timer it goes so fast. But I'm going to be, as I always am, I'm going to be naughty, and I'm going to squeeze one more in.
Okay.
Just a little, kind of wedge it in the end. Okay. I've got to choose which one I want. This is a good one to finish on, actually. So when you look back at your career as an artist, do you think that you've been on kind of one winding path exploring similar ideas or concepts, or do you think you kind of take hard left or right turns where your work will change dramatically? And if it is the latter, is that a conscious choice? Do you force yourself to turn left instead of right?
Well, I think I've worked across so many different things and I've done so much stuff. But I'm always driven by like some kind of impulse. And the weird thing is in retrospect, when I look back, it all seems to make sense. It feels very linear. And I've thought about this a lot. And I think the consistent thing, weirdly, is me. I made it all. That's the thing it's got in common. So whether it's a paint formulation or an art installation or a bit of video work or whatever it is that I've made, I did it. So it's how I felt at the time. So it doesn't ever feel like a hard right or a hard left. But at the time, it can feel quite disparate. Like, what on earth am I doing learning how to write code today when I was painting yesterday? But in a long enough timeline, it all seems to kind of make sense. It's weird.
That's amazing. Thank you, first of all, for taking time out and also I wanted to thank you just from a personal level. Like I said before, that I find your work really inspiring. I honestly do. It literally gets my heart kind of racing and it's so it's an absolute joy to speak to you, actually.
Oh, well, it was lovely to meet you. And,
thank you, mate. Thank you. Cheers. Stuart, thank you so much for taking part in the podcast. It was brilliant to have you on, and apologies again for reading the questions. I was convinced I was going to fluff it if I didn't read them. Thank you to my executive producer, MixingLight.com. If you're watching this or listening to this on their website, you already know what they do. If not, check them out, MixingLight.com. They can help you with everything colour. And thank you to you, the listener. I've had so much great feedback already. Keep the comments coming, do the like, subscribe, all that stuff. It really does help. And see you next episode.
The Color Timer, a micro podcast experience.